If you have a fearful or reactive dog, I'm sure you've heard a lot of advice from family, friends, random people on the street, and even YouTube trainers, right? You might be confused, you might feel hopeless, you might be in over your head. There are a lot of misconceptions that are not helpful and can make your dog worse. Today, I'm going over 10 misconceptions about dog fear and reactivity and what actually works. My name is Genji Pywell. I am a certified dog trainer and I specialize in fear and reactivity. I love this type of training because I have seen lasting transformations in people and dogs. So let's get into it. Myth number 1, your dog was abused. It's possible your dog was abused, but oftentimes dogs who are not socialized properly when they were young can become fearful or reactive. What this means is that at a critical time when they were pups, they were not exposed to things that now as adults they're afraid of. This can be strangers or other dogs or umbrellas or trash cans or men with beards. Regardless of whether your dog was abused or not, force-free trauma-informed training is effective. Feeling sorry for your dog is not going to help them overcome their challenges. Helping them feel safe, building their confidence, and helping them feel more comfortable around their triggers is what works. Myth number 2, expose them to the scary thing over and over again, and they'll get used to it. This makes a lot of sense logically, but dog fears are not logical. When we expose our dogs to their triggers without helping them feel safe, we make the problem worse because we sensitize them to their triggers. What this means is we actually make them more afraid, and this is exactly the opposite of what we want to do. Imagine if you're afraid of scorpions and you were forced against your will to be exposed to many scorpions over and over again. You would probably become more afraid of scorpions. What works instead is exposing our dogs to their triggers at low levels or distances that they don't have a reaction, paired with good things like food. Over time, we can help them move closer to their triggers and dial back the high value rewards. We also teach them other behaviors when they see their triggers, like paying attention to us, to replace the previous reactions they were having. Myth number 3, give it time or they'll grow out of it. Dogs aren't like children who are afraid of the dark or afraid of monsters in their closet. They won't wake up one day and be adults and not be afraid anymore. Time is actually not on your side when it comes to dog fear and reactivity. The reason why is because the longer your dog rehearses their reaction to whatever they're afraid of, the more automatic that reaction becomes, and the harder it is to help our dogs because that behavior becomes so ingrained. That's why if you see fearful or reactive behavior, growling, barking, lunging, snapping, hiding, running away, don't wait. Act now. The longer you wait, the harder it's going to be to help your dog. Myth number 4, it is all your fault. Blame, guilt, or shame does nothing to help you or your dog. It's possible you've done things that weren't helpful, but it's more likely that your dog has experienced things that were out of your control. Some dogs are actually more predisposed to being fearful or reactive than others. Oftentimes, fear and reactivity has nothing to do with the way you treated or the way you raised your dog. We need to move past these negative emotions. We need to be positive, hopeful, and proactive in order to help our dogs. Myth number 5, my dog will never change. When you see some of the extreme reactions some dogs have to their triggers, I can completely understand why you would think, I don't think that dog will ever change. But I have seen some amazing transformations in very extreme cases. Dogs who are too afraid to leave the house who now happily go on walks. Dogs who would totally freak out at dogs and other people who now calmly walk down the street. We are all capable of improvement and we are all capable of change, and that includes our dogs. When we say a limiting belief like, my dog will never change, then we're not actually even giving them a chance to succeed. Myth number 6, medication will fix it. Medication can be extremely helpful for dogs experiencing fear and reactivity, but medication alone doesn't fix the problem. Medications lower our dog's baseline of stress so they can learn how to behave around their triggers. When our dogs are in fight or flight, they can't learn. When prescribing medication, your veterinarian will advise you to use the medication in combination with a training program. If you've ever taken anti-anxiety or antidepressant medications, they work to a certain extent. If you've done talk therapy, that also works to a certain extent. Combined, they work better together than separately. And that's the same way medication works with dog training. This doesn't mean that all fearful or reactive dogs require medication, and you should always speak to your vet before starting any new medication or supplement. Myth number 7, basic obedience will fix fear and reactivity. I would never tell you not to train your dog. I'm a dog trainer. I love dog training. But the kind of skills that dogs learn in basic obedience training does nothing to help them overcome their fear or reactivity. These skills can complement fear and reactivity training, and a lot of them can be used in a fear and reactivity training program. I've met a lot of dogs who excel at agility, nose work, or tricks, but when they're around their triggers, they completely forget all of those skills because those skills don't help them when they feel threatened. What works is a training program that directly targets how your dog feels and behaves around their triggers. Myth number 8, more exercise is the answer. Of course, exercise is so important for staying healthy and reducing stress, but exercise doesn't teach our dogs how to feel better around their triggers. In fact, some types of exercise, like highly arousing exercise, can actually make reactivity worse. Long games of fetch or really rough play is actually stressful for your dog, and then when your dog is later around their triggers, they're much more likely to be reactive. The best type of exercise for dogs with fear and reactivity are long sniffy walks or long decompression walks. These walks away from the dog's triggers allow the dog to explore their environment, have freedom of movement, and sniff everything they want. This is extremely mentally tiring and helps them reduce stress, and it's a great complement to a fear and reactivity reduction training program. Myth number 9, I need to understand why my dog is having these reactions. People love stories. We hold on to stories, but oftentimes stories really hold us back. We can't change the past, and we might never actually know what happened. What we need is data. We need to know what our dogs are triggered by. What is the distance before they become reactive? This is the kind of information that can help us create a tailored training program to directly address fear and reactivity and set up scenarios that are going to help our dogs succeed in these kinds of situations. Myth number 10, punishment will solve fear and reactivity. Yelling, scolding, hitting your dog, yanking on their leash, leash pops, or other aversive tools like shock collars, prong collars, and choke collars are actually going to make your dog's fear and reactivity worse. They can actually increase aggression and make your dog afraid of you. Punishment adds fear, stress, and pain to an already intense situation. It can inadvertently cause our dog to become more fearful and aggressive towards their triggers because when their trigger shows up, they experience pain or fear. Punishment may seem to work in the short term because it suppresses the behaviors that we don't want, but it does nothing for the underlying emotions. What it actually teaches dogs is that their early warning signs don't work and they need to escalate. This means that what was previously barking and lunging can turn into air snapping and biting. What works is a training plan that reduces stress and helps your dog feel better around their triggers. It teaches them to make better choices. Instead of barking and lunging, they can turn to you and give you attention. Bonus myth: my dog is bad. You may think because your dog is acting out, barking and lunging at other dogs and people, growling, that they're inherently bad dogs. I don't think there are bad dogs. I think there are dogs that have figured out strategies that work to help them avoid things that make them feel afraid. For example, they're fearful of strangers. When a person walks towards them, they bark or growl. The person walks away. It worked, so they repeat it. Dogs bark and lunge and growl because those are the tools they have to communicate their discomfort. This isn't a matter of good and bad, it's what they've learned. It's up to us to help them feel safe, to trust that we've got their back, and to teach them better coping skills when faced with things that scare them. I hope this was helpful in debunking some of the common myths around dog fear and reactivity. There's nothing I want more than to help dogs overcome their fear and reactivity and help people live peaceful lives with their dogs. If you need help, I offer a free 15-minute training consultation when we can talk about your goals and your challenges. There's no pressure to buy and no strings attached. I truly wish you the best of luck and want you to feel hopeful that you and your dog can overcome any challenges you're currently facing.